welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who is keeping it together. It's Chris Kelly.
Hi, everyone.
KIT, keeping it together.
Now, you're going to start on the other side of traffic and run it to us, and it's to show that you prove your love for the girl.
And all the drivers are stunt drivers.
Don't worry, there are people. They're with us. I love that scene because he's like, when he gets done running through there, he's like,
heartbreaking.
I don't want to do this again. He's like, that was beautiful. Now, can you do that again?
He's like, this is what I need you to do. I need you to go get us some coffee, right? And I need you to go get us some pencils. But first, you got to do it again.
I need you to sharpen them.
Yeah.
And then
he's so good at doing that to Kit, Steve Martin's character, Bowfinger, so doing, to Jiff. I love how he just plays him around his finger. And all right, so Bowfinger, I pitched this movie to you because our last podcast is One Cut of the Dead. That's another movie about making a movie. So I figured, hey, since we work in the industry, let's talk about another movie about the making of a movie with a budget of $2,184. Because after net, gross, wages, taxes, and every movie costs $2,184. Did that make you happy?
I seriously burst out laughing whenever I saw that. It's so, the character of Bowfinger is just utterly perfect as far as a producer trying to make a movie in Hollywood or anywhere in general.
Oh, after gross net deduction, and then the nut. I think he makes a fart sound. I love him in this movie though when he's like, and we, as in me, will become famous. And when Jamie Kennedy, who's very good in this movie.
Yeah, he's great as a
super relaxed.
I like his character because you would need to have somebody who's kind of on the inside. You could make that argument that Bowfinger's character is on the inside, but he's really not. But Jamie Kennedy's character is kind of similar to what you and I did in the film industry, where you're always working on a set. And then you have somebody who, just a regular PA, and then they would have different connections to different parts. So then he could go. I like how they shot the movie. I don't know. They didn't really explain it very well, but clearly he was going to the video rental. To the gear rental place, taking this camera and then bringing it back before, on a Friday night, bringing it back Sunday.
He seems like he works on the studio a lot. So he's not a PA that comes in to work freelance. I think he's probably hired by that studio. Yeah. So he has access to everything. And
I love that.
Okay. Jamie Kennedy, man. It bums me out because I love him in the Scream movies. I love him in this movie. I actually liked him in Malibu's Most Wanted.
I love Malibu's Most Wanted.
I have a Gamecast. Well, you either have a GameCube or a Dreamcast. I don't know. I don't got no money.
That's a great
Regina
movie.
Hall's in that movie. And they show up with a musket. Oh, Taye Diggs and Anthony Anderson.
That is funny. Yeah, they're both fantastic.
They're what, Mad Dog and something else? They're Shakespearean trained actors. Doesn't he get shot in the butt?
God, it's been almost a decade since I've seen that.
Don't be hating.
He's trying to rap, and then they throw him in a dumpster at some point.
And he's hanging out with Cal Penn and Nick Swartzen are part of his team, and they bring a scuba diving a spear gun with them. Back to Bowfinger. Sorry. But I just love I love this movie itself. They would have to ADR everything. The sound would be terrible, but it works in the context of this movie. But it's also kind of a ballsy movie if you think about it. I mean, it says some pretty controversial things. You have Mine Hat with Eddie Murphy, which is, they never, Frank Oz, he never mentions it in the commentary, but he's playing off of a certain type
He's obviously trying to say something about Tom Cruise and Scientology.
Spending so much money. Hey, you should spend some time. So when Eddie Murphy's character's going crazy, you should spend some time in our celebrity reaction area.
Yeah.
And then Kit's like, go get my checkbook.
Yeah, right. I love that as well. And also when he's hooked up to the monitor, every time he says, was it erection?
Gonads.
It goes crazy. It's like, for some reason.
Trying to get my gonads. Now, this obviously didn't happen. It's what, 20 years later. But Eddie Murphy puts in at least a Golden Globe nominated performance in this.
He does. I mean, it's kind of speaking a lot about acting and actors in general, especially with his character of Kit Ramsey. I mean, it's very similar to how you would say maybe a Sylvester Stallone. Maybe his outburst and the way that Kit Ramsey is behaving is more suitable to Tom Cruise. But all those actors from that time period, that's what he's more or less talking about.
Eddie Murphy took this movie because he wanted to work with Steve Martin.
Of course.
And then also he's like, I got to be the world's biggest action star. And so Frank Oz, the director, is like, okay, sure.
Yeah, of course,
we'll do that for
why
you.
not? That was a pretty ballsy move. I did a little research that both Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin were in sort of like a financial slump at this point.
Yeah, because
there was a lot of movies that they had released that did not do very well. Previously, right before this movie was the movie Life, which had an $80 million budget, but it only grossed worldwide 73.
Yeah, that wasn't too big.
It wasn't a big hit.
The cornbread bit, it was good, though.
Oh, yeah. I still say that joke to this day. Get your cornbread.
You're not going to take my cornbread.
Man, get your own damn cornbread. Just to add on a little bit to that, Eddie Murphy, then prior to make this movie, he did Holy Man. And
oh, yeah.
It was a $55 million budget. It only made $32 million. And then Metro, which is arguably, well, he did one after this movie, which was a bigger bomb, but Metro was a $60 million budget and only made $12 million.
That had De Niro too.
Yeah, that was no wait, sorry, not Metro. You're thinking of what, Showtime?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Metro.
Metro is that one where he has braids.
Yeah.
That was a movie that did not do very well.
Oh,
at all.
yeah.
And the front cover looks like he was in the middle of a joke when they took his picture. For some reason, they're using that as the cover.
Yeah, I remember Metro.
I remember when that came out, and I was like, why is this picture the front cover? Because it does not look like a front cover. It looks like they just took a random photo of Eddie Murphy telling a joke.
He was burning a lot of his fan base built from Nutty Professor, which was massive.
Yeah.
And The Clumps, the second one.
Yeah, those were huge hits.
I was working in a movie theater during The Clumps, and so this was the days before stadium seating. It was just a regular theater. And I got so mad one night. So I was a supervisor. I had to go in, and it was a sold-out screening of The Clumps. So before the movie started, I had to go in a couple minutes before and be like, hey guys, listen, it's a sold out theater. I need y'all to do me a favor. It's sold out, so we want to pack everybody in here. If everyone could just please move towards the center for me. And if you're on the side, just please either move towards the left or right so we can pack in as many people as possible. That way, we're not separating groups and people are stepping in front of you throughout the movie. And everyone just looked at me. Right? They just stared at me. And then I was like, I'm not backing down. So I just stood there and I just stared at them. And so I have about 400 people staring at me, and I'm just standing there staring at them. I have my white button-up shirt with my little lapels on my shoulder that said I was a supervisor, and I just kind of like stood there, 19-year-old kid, maybe 17. I don't remember how old I was, but I was just staring at this audience. I was like, I'm not going to budge.
I'm not showing this movie till y'all start moving.
And then they weren't budging, and then I wasn't budging, and then a couple people moved, and more people moved. And when I left, I got a round of applause. It taught me about. I was like, I'm not backing down from these theater goers. They annoyed me, man. But that was I just remember how huge that was because the theater was exploded. So many people were in there.
And then Nutty Professor was definitely a massive hit. And then when Nutty Professor 2 came out, everybody wanted to see it. Hercules. I'm a pony. Yeah.
Oh man, I love that scene.
Due to the massive success of those movies and Dr. Dolittle, which was a $71 million budget, and it made $294 million worldwide. That's kind of what gave him the grounds to come back for Bowfinger. And also, sadly, shortly right after Bowfinger, he made Pluto Nash, which was probably the biggest. I mean, it's not in Guinness Book of World Records, but it's definitely one of the biggest flops of all time.
It almost sunk a studio.
Yeah, I mean, it damn well almost killed his career too.
In orbit.
He didn't make movies for a long time after that because of those movies. Pluto Nash was a $100 million film. And it made $7 million worldwide.
It made negative $4.
They actually paid someone not to show up.
Yeah.
It was, and the same thing can be said about Steve Martin. Sergeant Bilko was made,
which I love, and no one could ever say anything bad about.
I like that movie too.
I haven't watched it in 2 decades, but
yeah,
I loved it.
But that was a $39 million budget, made $37 million. And then Spanish Prisoner, which is what Steve Martin talks about on the making of feature of this DVD of Bowfinger. That was a $10 million film. It only made $9 million. Out of Towners, which was his...
But that was a minor... Spanish Prisoner, the director was...
It was more of an independent film. Yeah. It was like Usual Suspects.
And people liked it a lot. That was Neil LaBute, right?
I don't
Spanish
remember.
Prisoner?
I think so.
Because that got him raves. I know that.
Yeah, I mean, he was fantastic. I mean, it's been, God, must have been 20 years.
He was butter.
Butter, baby.
Chicken with it. Chicken.
It's, you can get down with it. But he...
How do you know it's Jiggy Baby?
But I just want to recap real quick that he then did the Outer Towners, which was $75 million, and then it was and made $28 million. So this was quite a risk, actually, having these two actors going at it, even though they have such a history of being amazing comedic performers. They really did for a number of years have a lead up to not successful. But then as soon as they got done with doing this, he, Steve Martin came back with Cheaper by the Dozen, which was a $40 million film with made $190 million. So
that made bank.
That made some serious dough. So did Father of the Bride 1 and 2, which arguably still fantastic films. But I like how you said he's butter. That was remember the commentary. Frank Oz said that was they would do everything by the script, and then he would have them improv because they were both fantastic improv artists. And Steve Martin came up with that whole it's Jiggy Baby, it's butter. It's like, how do you know it was Jiggy Baby?
That was so funny when Eddie Murphy said that. And do you think it was because, so you're right, Murphy and Steve Martin had gone through a bit of a rough patch, but the director was Frank Oz, who was coming off of, Dark Crystal, that was 80s obviously, but In and Out, which
that got an Oscar nomination.
Yeah, super popular movie. So he had some clout, Frank Oz. He also did What About Bob, which was successful financially.
He also did Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Yeah, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. He had worked with Steve Martin before, which was a big success, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. I love that movie. So do you think since he was attached to it, it was more palatable to studios?
You're right. I think that a lot of that had to do with it. I think that given Frank Oz's history of being who he is, as far as with all the Muppets and everything, and that this budget wasn't really that big to begin with.
Yeah, what was the budget?
$55 million.
Yeah, it's not bad.
So it's not a huge budget. So
you mean 2,184? I guarantee you. How much you think went to Martin and Murphy? 20?
They may have taken a pay cut. I didn't read anything or hear anything about them getting pay cuts, but I personally believe they probably took a big pay cut to do this, just so that they could get their name out again, and hopefully they could make some money, which they did, because this movie grossed $98 million.
It's good.
It's a great movie.
This is a good movie, and it never gets old to me.
As long as there's going to be people producing movies in Hollywood, this movie will always be relevant.
This movie makes me so happy. And I think that, I also think Frank Oz, he did a good job with this, because if you think about In and Out and What About Bob, they're very congenial movies. They're very nice. They're very, I don't know, they hit.
I don't know about What About Bob being a nice movie. But that whole rant.
Yeah, but when you watch it, when he's like, I'm walking through the kitchen with a bowl full of chicken, and he's sailing on a boat. And just, I don't know, he finds an interesting tone, Frank Oz, and I think he does that with this movie as well. However, on the commentary, it got a little old. He's like, so right here, the exterior is a bungalow in Santa Monica.
And then when I snap my fingers, we will now be in a stage. And it's like, I get
Angeles.
it. I know.
Oh, wait, now we're back to the bungalow.
And when I snap my fingers again, we'll be 3 months from now.
Oh.
And then it's like, yeah, I get it.
That's 47 minutes of the commentary.
Yeah, I get it, Frank. You made a movie in Hollywood. I get it. That's how you make movies.
But do you think we're jaded because we've worked on so many film sets we know?
Could be. I mean, I thought that whenever I was watching, I'm like, well, that's clearly a set. Like, that's an exterior shot of somewhere that they probably found. And I assumed it was probably Compton, which I don't forget where he says it was.
No, the bungalow? Yeah. No, that was in a nice area. That was L.A., outside of L.A.
Well,
it was an accounting office.
All right. But yeah, they
were probably millionaires. It's so expensive out there.
Golly, I couldn't imagine. They had to that was, they was probably the office for the accounting for this movie.
Could be.
That's probably what it was. Like 2 birds, 1 stone.
Do you think this movie features the best fake ponytail of the 90s?
I loved that. Oh my God. That was brilliant. I loved how he has the ponytail and then he takes it off.
Why does he wear it? To make him seem more vibrant?
Because remember, movies in the 90s, they always had producers who had ponytails for some reason.
Yeah.
I remember in the 90s, having that rat ponytail was somehow popular. I'm not sure why that was, but it was, because I know that a lot of people had those.
And remember, he was 49, almost 50. He could pass for 44 and maybe 39. So he wore that ponytail to maybe seem more vibrant and younger. Probably. In the age before he gets thrown away.
And did you remember in the commentary, Frank Oz said that the extra with the white hair, and he said that was completely by accident, and he took off the ponytail just to go with it. And it's like, that's pretty funny. I thought that was a really funny bit where he just pulls it off, and then whenever he goes to hand Robert Downey Jr. His card, and he has the ponytail with it. Oh, that's funny. And I love Robert Downey Jr.
He's good in this movie.
Robert Downey, I mean, he was in his slump as well. I mean, he's a great